On August 15th, 2025, a really high-stakes meeting in Alaska grabbed the whole world's attention. But the real story wasn't just about what happened in that room. It's about what that meeting really revealed and what it means for the future of the entire Western world. Okay, let's just dive right into this. That is a pretty stunning verdict, right? Especially coming from Donald Trump's own former national security advisor. So to really understand how so many people from all across the political spectrum came to that conclusion, we first need to look at what actually went down at the summit. So this was the very first time the US and Russian leaders had met face-to-face since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And from the moment Putin's plane touched down, the optics, well, they were absolutely striking. Now you gotta remember, for years, Putin has basically been treated like an international pariah. He's been indicted on war crimes charges by the International Criminal Court. But here he was, being welcomed back into the fold, smiling, stepping onto U.S. soil. But after 3 hours of talks, they come out and their public statements tell two completely different stories. You had Putin confidently talking about an agreement like they'd made real progress, and then Trump immediately walks that back, basically revealing this major disconnect right there for the whole world to see. At the end of the day, Trump himself admitted that on the summit's #1 goal, hammering out a peace deal in Ukraine, it fell short. No ceasefire, no agreement, no real breakthrough at all. So, if the summit completely failed to produce a deal, why on earth was the immediate analysis from commentators so surprisingly uniform? John Bolton, who, served in Trump's first administration, was completely unequivocal about it. He basically argued that Putin walked away with a tactical victory, while Trump came away empty-handed on his main objective. And, Democrats agreed, but they were looking at it from a different angle. Jen Psaki pointed out that for Putin, the meeting itself was the prize. It just shattered his diplomatic isolation and gave him a huge dose of international legitimacy, all without him having to make a single concession. And it wasn't just political analysts saying this. Even reporters who were physically in the room felt that the power dynamic was tilted. The general feeling was that Putin got his photo op, got the prestige, controlled the narrative, and then just left. But to really, truly understand this verdict, we need to zoom out. This isn't just about what happened in one room in Alaska for a few hours. It's about the much, much bigger strategic picture. So this is the crucial point, right? What if a peace deal wasn't Putin's main goal in Alaska to begin with? What if he was playing a completely different game? This is a really key distinction. You see, experts argue that Trump approaches this whole conflict kind of like a real estate deal, where you can swap some land here, make a concession there. But for Putin, the goals are seen as ideological and eliminationist. It's about denying Ukraine's very right to exist as an independent, Western-leaning nation. So if you start looking at it through that lens, Putin's checklist for the day looks very different. He broke his diplomatic isolation, he delayed any talk of new sanctions, and he regained a ton of prestige on the world stage, all without giving up a single thing. In fact, his forces actually continued their attacks in Ukraine while the summit was happening. And this is where the story gets so much bigger than just one summit. Because what that meeting really did was expose a deep and growing crisis of confidence within the NATO alliance itself. Donald Trump's return to the presidency has plunged the alliance into what some are calling an existential crisis. The very foundation of collective defense is being questioned, and it's forcing members to confront a future they honestly never expected. Now, at the heart of all this tension is this long-standing, really bitter argument over defense spending. Trump has repeatedly called European allies freeloaders for not hitting that 2% of GDP target. And that's created massive internal tension and distrust in an alliance that's supposed to be built on mutual support. But get this. This division runs so deep that the allies don't even agree on the fundamental cause of the war. For countries like Poland and Lithuania, the answer is crystal clear: Russian imperialism. But for a key member like Turkey, a primary cause is seen as NATO expansion. How can you possibly have a coherent strategy when you don't even agree on what the problem is? So, this deep internal crisis, which was just laid bare by the whole dynamic of the Alaska summit, means that NATO is now at a historic crossroads. Its future is literally hanging in the balance. So, what happens next? With American leadership so uncertain, experts have basically laid out three potential ways this could all go for the alliance, and each one has some pretty profound consequences. Okay, so experts see three potential paths. First, there's NATO minus, where the US stays in but pulls back a bit, forcing Europe to take on way more responsibility. Second, a full-on European defense union, which means the US leaves entirely. And third, something called NATO as a toolbox, where the alliance becomes this looser framework for coalitions of the willing. Each and every one of these paths is loaded with risk, from the huge cost of Europe going it alone to the potential collapse of the whole collective security guarantee that's kept the peace for over 75 years. Look, the Alaska summit didn't cause this crisis, but it was definitely a symptom. And the decisions that the allies make in the coming months, well, they won't just be about Ukraine. They could literally reshape global security for generations to come.